Hello, I'm David Groninger in Seattle, Washington. Today is Thanksgiving Day, November 26th, 2015. By the way, if one side of my face seems brighter than the other side, there's a window right here and it's a sunny day and the sun is coming through, and that's the reason for that. Well, I have this idea that somehow I can make a 10-minute message that can help 10 million people. So I've decided that I'm going to make one of these 10-minute messages a day for until I make 1,000 messages. I figure it'll take me 3 years to do that, and I have no idea which message, or if any of them, might actually help 10 million people, or if any message will even help one person. But they are helping me, because somehow or another, when I ask myself the question, what is a 10-minute message that could help 10 million people, somehow the answers I seem to get are at least solutions or answers that somehow help me in my own life. So at least I'm helping me by giving these talks. And like I say, I have no idea if 10 million people will ever be helped by these talks, but I do know that it will be 10 minutes long. I have an alarm clock that's set right here to go off in 10 minutes. So here's the talk today, and again I ask myself the question, what is a 10-minute message that could help 10 million people? Well, one thing that comes to mind is raising our standards for our emotional and mental well-being. You know, maybe you call it emotional health, or the quality of our feeling, the manner in which we experience life, the quality of our life. And of course this plays into the physical part of life too, not only our physical bodies, but our ability to have income and the things that money can buy to help us along as well. But the focus of this talk is going to be the raising our standards for the emotional and mental part of life. I'm talking about the sense of fulfillment, the sense of gratification, the sense of happiness, your standard for happiness. And so a part of my message here is kind of an invitation. I want to invite you to raise your standard for how you define your happiness. I want you to raise your standard on how you define what is mental health, what is the quality of your mindset, and the quality of your emotional well-being. I want you to raise the standard, and I want you to raise it very, very high. Even if it seems unrealistic at this time, the objective is not to get there tomorrow. The objective is to merely have a high standard. Because by having a high standard and being respectful of where you are right now regarding your feelings and your mentality, your way of thinking, your paradigm, your points of view and whatever, by being respectful for where you are right now, this makes you aware of your current condition, and by being aware of this, you can see where your strengths and weaknesses are that you can adapt or that you can change so that you can improve on your strengths, and eliminate some of the weaknesses so you can bit by bit move forward toward the standard. The idea of having a standard, and a very, very high standard for your happiness, for your sense of ecstasy of living, for your sense of fulfillment and great joy of life. The reason for having a high standard is to set yourself in a direction. It's not to obtain that immediately by drinking 10 cups of coffee or taking some type of a drug or some type of food, comfort food that immediately gets you into some kind of a state of euphoria. Not by a long shot. The reason we have a high standard is to set you in a direction so that bit by bit you can be improving upon your quality of life. That is the quality of your feelings, the quality of how you think about things. There's a lot of help, coaching, training, education that a person can get that can help them in this area of the mental, the self-growth of the mind and thinking and the way we think about things and the way we process our emotions and feelings. So if you just think, emotional well-being and mental well-being, how can I have a very, very high standard? And work on this with yourself. I think you're going to be very, very surprised at the kinds of changes that will be available to you. So when I think about, well, so what is a message that's a 10-minute message that could help 10 million people? That's my thought today, the mindset and the emotional well-being. One of the things that I sometimes do for both of these is I make a scale from 1 to 10. I actually carry a little chart with me, like on a 3x5 card, that just lists the numbers from 1 to 10. And periodically throughout the day, I'll just pull this out of my pocket and say, well where am I right now on feeling-wise? Maybe I'm just a 2, and maybe from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. Well, that's fine. At least I know that. Maybe later on I'll pull it out, and maybe it's a 2 or a 3. Maybe later on in the day, it's maybe an 8 or a 9. What I'll do at the end of the day, I'll take a few notes of these too. I'll ask myself, well, what is it about what I was experiencing, about how I was behaving, about how I was interacting with life? What is it that made my mindset or emotional set down to a 1 or a 2? Was there something I was doing? Was there some habit? Is there some recurring blame or shame or regret that I keep thinking about that's keeping me there? Is there some bad habit I have in how I interact with other people that's somehow annoying other people, and then they get annoyed back at me, and then I feel bad, so I'm at a 1 or a 2 emotionally? So I do this as a self-corrective measure. Furthermore, when I look at the times when I was maybe like a 9 or a 10 that particular day, I might ask myself, well, what was I doing during that time? Commonly it's maybe taking a bike ride. Or behind me, you can't see it, it's off the camera of my grand piano. I'm playing something on the piano. Maybe I'm taking a bike ride. Maybe I'm having an outstanding interaction with somebody that I just met. So I make notes of what seems to support a high and wonderful well-being. I make notes of what seems to weigh myself down. And once I have this information, particularly on a consistent basis of 5, 10, 20, and 30 days of doing these measurements from 1 to 10, then I can really have something to work with and start adjusting. As they say, you accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. Well, I'll find out what kind of behavior I was doing that was causing me to annoy people, that was bringing me down because they were annoyed back at me. I'll find out how I can change that so I no longer am doing that or do less of it. Then I'll find out what I was doing that was making things go so well and do just a little bit more of that. When I make these gradual, simple changes to make, these are things that are controllable by me. These are in my control. How the world treats me and how the world gives me whatever scarcity or abundance, health or good health, happiness or unhappiness, good friends or bad friends, whatever the world gives me is really not in my control. However, indirectly, I can have some influence because I can control myself. I can be a student of my own life. I can be aware by taking notes or doing a journal and asking for feedback from other people. I can become more aware of of the actions I am taking and aware of the responses that are coming back to me. Then I can do something about my actions. The more I do on the things that I can control, the more the world seems to react toward me in a way that's pleasing, wonderful, and loving toward me. So again, the main theme of this message is simply this. What is a 10-minute message that could help 10 million people? Well, we all have feelings. We all have a brain. We all have a mind. But our ability to manage our feelings, our ability to manage our way of thinking, and our willingness to become educated, trained, to read, to get coaching, to take classes in just what these feelings are and how we can better manage our own feelings. What kind of thinking processes do we go through? And how can we better manage the way we think, the way we use our mind, how we use our mind to focus on things or let go of things? So again, by asking myself this question over and over again, what is the 10-minute message, or what is a 10-minute message that can help 10 million people? The thought today is mind and feeling. So my invitation to you is to look at the world as one big party. It's a big party that I'm inviting you to, and the particular party I'm inviting you to is one of an exceptionally high standard in the quality of life, in your emotional well-being, and in your mental well-being. So consider this party is one that I invite you to, and you walk and you arrive at this party, and the standards are already very, very high. Everybody at this party has an extremely high standard in the area of their emotional and mental well-being. So you find people that are doing very, very well in life. They talk about things that are moving them forward. They're interested in your own life and how they might be a kind friend in supporting anything that you might need a little bit of help or support in. And so you find this is quite different than maybe a regular party where maybe you just show up and there's basically no theme to it at all. Some people are positive, others are negative, some people are happy, some people are unhappy, and whatever the main, current event that's been on the news all day long seems to be the topic of conversation. So there's not a real, deliberate, not a real deliberate and intentional, creating of the experience, but rather kind of reflecting what's going on around you, being more like the effect of somebody else's cause. I invite you to be a tremendous cause on your own life. I must have gone 10 minutes. Let me look. Well, no, I'm just about right. I said my alarm clock was supposed to go off at 12:56. Well, somehow it didn't go off. But I've gone 10 minutes, so I'm going to conclude my talk. And again, my simple message is this. I want to create a message, a 10-minute message that helps 10 million people. I'm going to do one talk a day for 1,000 talks, which is 3 years, and see which one just might do it. Maybe none of them will do it, but one thing that I can control the 10-minute talk, which I've already gone 1 minute over. In summary, today's talk has been simply this. Raise your standard for your happiness. And this really means raising the standard for your emotional well-being and for your mental well-being. Raise the standard. This does not mean that you have to jump to this level tomorrow or even next year. It just gives you a direction to work toward. So this is David Groninger in Seattle, Washington, saying Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you very much for listening.